Yeah.
I was like so grateful that you got the brainstorm to do this, and then that we pulled it together. Wow, amazing,
Right.
amazing. I just wanted to share, let me see if I can find it here, the picture, the image of for the all the teachers. Wait, let me find it first because it's back here somewhere. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to share again, like a little review of what we did and who was on today, and really
I
how
can pull it up. I have it right here. You want me to do it?
okay,
Yeah,
cool.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Tell us what we experienced.
Yeah, so we started out with Top Eric Gonzalez and from spiritjaguar.com, and that was an absolutely beautiful kind of overview of the Mayan teachings, really. It was so perfectly set up for him to go first and to share that gorgeous introduction. So I highly recommend every section of this, and that in particular, for a good overview. And then we went into Miguel Vergara, who took us a little deeper into the culture. And he's at casakin.org. He's actively doing all of these people. These three top people here are actively doing tours and classes and workshops and private sessions and things like that around this. So if any of them really spoke to you, I really encourage people to go back and check them out. And Miguel took us a little deeper into some of the codes and ideas about the deep lineage of pure light teachings of the Maya. I'll just call it that. And then Patricia and Daniel Cardona, who were proteges of and students of Hunbat's men for many years, and who received his skull, the crystal skull, that is, not his actual physical skull, but evidently Hunbat's men delivered some of his consciousness into this skull for purpose of posterity. And they're at cosmicmysteryschool.com. And then after that, we had Giselle come on, and she did a beautiful exploration of this very day, which is pretty poignant, plus a deep meditation for those who want to go back and catch that. And of course, we had Abhi Shiva, who you can find on Instagram. Was it Divine Art, Sacred Art by Abhi? Divine Art by Abhi on Instagram, and who just gave us this amazing overview of the connection between Mamuni Mayan and the Mayan civilization and the Vedic culture. Now we get to hear from you, Neil, and then we are really looking forward to hear all about your research.
I'm excited to share it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this, everybody. We're in the final stretch for the all-day Maya conference. The last part here we're putting on YouTube as well, just for because we're going to go right into a discussion after this. If anybody who is listening to this on YouTube wants to sign up for the full conference, it's in the description. And this is a presentation that I'm going to do that I was a long time coming. I was attempting to put this together for many years, and it was on my to-do list. And then finally last year, just like a lot of us, I had the time to actually focus on it. So I created this presentation here called Journey Through the Maya Empire. And I like to call it a practical guide to the Maya Empire, because within the spiritual community, the opportunity that I've had a lot is doing so many presentations, working with 1,000+ speakers. I've got to learn a lot and create a full spectrum kind of image in my head of like what's going on in the world in our past, but also look at what was not actually touched on, and then maybe do some presentations on those elements. So a lot of my presentations are kind of niche within the community of consciousness and disclosure, because it's kind of filling in the pieces that I'm not actually seeing. And so this one is, even though we're going to talk about spirituality and the esoteric for sure, but this is a practical guide. We're going to talk about the architecture, the layout, the map of the Yucatan, how it got formed in the first place, the migration routes, what cacao is. So it's going to be a great journey. The full presentation of this one is actually a 3-hour-long presentation that is on our YouTube and is also on Portal Ascension website. So this is the shorter version. Plus, I'm going to have some things in this presentation that I did not have in my other one. So your tour guides for this today is my wife, Sol, myself, and our good friend Jaime, who is a Maya descendant that lives near Uxmal, which is about an hour south of Merida, which is basically my second home. I've been there, like whenever I go to Yucatan, I stay there the most, just because of like how much jungle is around me, and you're just like way connected and immersed in nature. Plus the ancient sites there and the pyramid there, I have just like this deep connection to. Plus now we're friends with Jaime and his whole family, and have had the opportunity to help them out and help them move from working from a hotel to working off the land and doing some ancient Maya practices that he actually does, because he is the maestro for the temescals, which are sweat lodges in that area. You can see here is another image of Jaime and us. And then also this is his whole family. The last time we went there, we all went out to eat. This slide right here is the tour that we were going to take this year, but we had to postpone till next year. So this year I'm going down there. We'll be there for like over a month. But next year, if anybody's interested, we're taking a group around 12 people on a tour to the Maya Yucatan Peninsula. And at the end of this presentation, I'll probably have some time to show you exactly what that entails. So let's do the slide that I almost always put in front of every single presentation, is why did I choose this topic? Why did I choose the Maya? Well, besides resonating with the area very deeply, I wanted to explore, which is another synchronicity, Shreya, is how this whole thing really just manifested, and the schedule manifested perfectly, because we just had an Indian himself talking about the connection, which is why I got into it in the first place. And now I'm an Indian talking specifically about the Maya. And I wanted to explore the ancient Indian connection.
How beautiful. Yeah, how perfect. Amazing.
Yeah. I was curious about the Maya architecture and their specific purposes. I want to, and, since Mexico is a democracy, it's easier than a lot of other places with ancient sites to actually explore the ancient sites. Plus, even more so than Peru, because in Peru, basically, when for the most part, a lot of ancient sites and places you can go visit, archaeological sites, only became archaeological sites because people from the West came and said, oh my God, you have something amazing here. And they go, oh, we have a lot of them, forget it. And then they said, but you can make money off it. And then what did they do? They decided to go ahead and do that. But so in the Yucatan, the accessibility of the sites are bar none, even though really there's like thousands of temples that haven't even been excavated yet because of the thickness of the jungle, which, they're trying to create pathways to actually get to these locations. And just in the last year, when we go next year and we take a tour, we're going to go to 2 sites that were just discovered last year. So that's going to be pretty amazing. And then also I heard for so many times, the Maya vanished. Well, I went down there and I met quite a few of them, and they were like, what? People think we don't exist? So I wanted to explore that. That's why I created this presentation. So let's take a look at where were the Maya located. The Maya civilization occupied southeastern Mexico in the Yucatan and Chiapas, as well as the countries of Guatemala and Belize, as well as western portions of Honduras and El Salvador. And as I'll show you in just a few moments, there seems that they could have actually been migration routes as far north as Georgia. New evidence suggests the Maya have had descendants in North America. A little quick detour. If you want to go deep into this topic that I'm going to speak about right now for a few seconds here, there's a whole 15-minute video on it on my YouTube, Portal to Ascension YouTube. And it's basically, why do we see such advanced civilizations south of the United States border? And then all of a sudden, it's like when you hit Mexican US border, all of a sudden it's like primitive mounds, not so intricate. The science and the mathematics don't seem to be at the level of everything south of the border. Have you ever wondered this? Well, I wondered this quite often. And my curiosity led me down a rabbit hole to realize that there were great civilizations, even more advanced than the ones that we've been finding now and that are known to us, that did exist in North America. However, the Northern Europeans, as opposed to the Southern Europeans, had a completely different mentality when they came to conquer. The Northern Europeans were like, we're greater than you. You don't need to exist anymore. Basically, we're better than you. Be our slaves, and we'll just push you away and push you away. The Spanish and the Portuguese had a different mentality about this. Even though they thought that these natives were inferior, they decided to mingle with them and mix with them more so than anything in North America, creating a mixed race very quickly compared to North America. In North America, they wanted to eradicate all evidence of advancement and greatness from these civilizations. In South America, even though some of them wanted to do that, not as much and prevalent as the Northern Europeans. So this takes me now here to this slide that I'm going to show you. So this article right here, I'm going to read to you guys, is some information that shows that the Maya could have actually existed as far north as Georgia. Massive 1,100-year-old Maya site discovered in Georgia mountains. I'm going to take around 10 minutes and go through this article and just pick some key points that kind of show what they discovered. So in this archaeological zone near Georgia's highest mountain, there's visible at least 154 stone masonry walls for agricultural terraces, plus evidence of a sophisticated irrigation system and ruins of several other stone structures. Much more may be hidden underground. It is possible that the site fabled in the city of Yupa, which Spanish explorer Hernando de Sota failed to find in 1540, and certainly one of the most important archaeological discoveries of recent time. Around 800 AD, the flourishing Maya civilization in Central America suddenly began a rapid collapse. Not the whole place, but in the northern parts and far south. They moved further into the Yucatan Peninsula from Guatemala and from Chiapas in around 800. Huge migration. Cities and agricultural villages in the fertile, abundant, watered Maya highlands were first to be abandoned. In 1839, actually, let me read this part here. Their agricultural surpluses made possible the rise of the great cities in the Maya lowlands and the Yucatan Peninsula. When the combination of volcanic eruptions, wars, and drought erased the abundance of food, famine struck the densely populated Maya lowlands. With a century, most of the cities were banned. However, some of the cities in the far north were taken over by the Itza Maya and still continued to thrive. In 1839, English architect Frederick Catherwood and writer John Stevens rediscovered the Maya civilization on a 2-year journey through southern Mexico. Let me just say something about that. The Maya people were there. If you went and talked to them, they would have told you the descendants. So this right here is kind of silly because in 1839 makes it seem like the Mayas didn't even exist. And Shariah, this is actually another reason why a lot of people today think the Maya vanished is because of this occurrence, where they say that these guys actually went down there and rediscovered the Maya. However, if you went down there and you spoke to the people, they would have told you their history anyway. Mm-hmm. So when their book on the journey was published in 1841, readers in Europe and North America were astounded that the indigenous people of the Americas could produce such an advanced culture. Okay, skipping forward here. In 1715, let's make sure I got the right part. Okay, in 1750, a Jewish lass to say, named Luby, inscribed her name on the and date on the boulder in Track Rock Gap. When Europeans first settled Georgia mountains in the early 1800s, they observed hundreds of fieldstone ruins, generally located either on mountaintops or the sides of mountains. These ruins consisted of fort-like circular structures, walls, Indian mounds veneered in stone walls, terrace retaining walls, or just piles of stone.
Can you clarify? So you're talking about Georgia, like the state of Georgia?
Yes, the state of Georgia. This is in Georgia. So, okay, now I'm just going to skip forward here to the evidence that connects them to the Maya. Williams is a highly respected specialist in southeastern archaeology, so there was a Maya connection that he did not know about. The earliest map shows the name Itzait for both a native village as Sati and another 5 miles away at the location of the popular resort in Helen, Georgia. Itzait, which is what the Itza Mayas called themselves, also among the indigenous people of the Americas. Only the Itza Mayas and the ancestors of the Creek Indians in Georgia built 5-sided earthen pyramids at their principal mounds. It was commonplace for the Itza Maya to sculpt the hill into a pentagonal mound. Wow. There are dozens of such structures in Central America.
Do you think those are related to the, what do they call it, the star forts at all?
Quite possibly. I didn't even really think about that. So, all right, here we go here. The name of Brassstone Bald Mountain itself, strong evidence for the Maya presence. A Cherokee village near the mountain was named Itzaye when Protestant missionaries arrived in 1820s. The missionaries mistranslated Itzaya to mean brass. They added town, and soon the village was known as Brasstown. Itzaye, which translates into English, means place of the Itza Maya. right? So this goes on even more, actually, like hardcore. Plus, the foundation of the city around 900 AD, right during the migration phase of the Maya. So it makes sense they would go there. And, I think that a lot of people feel like maybe just because we have borders, we don't really think like, how did they get over the border? But there weren't any borders back then. So they made their way up, settle that whole area. And that whole article actually goes over on 5 different anomalies that shouldn't exist in that area. So they said that this town was actually a Cherokee village. The Cherokee themselves deny it. Plus, the Cherokee moved there through, the U.S. government making them go to reservations only in 1800.
Oh my gosh! So there was a different indigenous
Yes.
civilization there, perhaps. Sounds like these people
There was
were
definitely a
like
different
Mayans.
civilization there, and it's pointing to the Maya, and that's mainstream archaeology now. So that's not even alternative anymore. They found too many similarities with the Maya civilization to deny it.
Really interesting. So not only were they, according to the lineage teachings, not only did they not disappear, and not only did they not do human sacrifice, but they also migrated and existed in various places that we don't usually think
Exactly.
about the Maya.
So when you go to, like I spoke about Paracas just a little while ago, there's a connection to the Paracas people and the Maya people because Brian Forrester, who I've worked with extensively in the past, did the DNA results of the Paracas people to track their migration routes. And not only did they get DNA from, what's it called? Samaria or Mesopotamia, right, had DNA from Mesopotamia, but they also had the same, similar DNA markers as the Hopi and as the Maya people.
Now, wait,
all the way down in Paracas.
This Southern Illinois, Cahokia, is this a painting or is this
This is a painting of what it used to look like. Now only mounds are left.
Well, there's some, I have driven all over this country the last year, and I had done it before too, but there are so many places where you're driving along and you're like, what in the heck is under that?
Yes.
Like, what's under here? Because sometimes these structures, I think I saw one just a couple days ago. It's like these structures are covered in mud, and that leads to the mud flood, which of course we're going to
get
into that in one of our presentations. But it just keeps getting interesting and interesting.
So like, I just want to drill home really the fact that the Northern Europeans, right, that were in North America really wanted to like completely eradicate the evidence of advanced civilizations in North America. And there was some incredible finds, including in the Grand Canyon, finding like a Sphinx in the Grand Canyon, a pyramid in the Grand Canyon. And if you look, the Smithsonian, actually, you can find it, Smithsonian article Egyptian. Put that in a search engine probably, and you'll find
of that.
You'll find a 1901 article from the Smithsonian about these 2 individuals that were hiking the Grand Canyon and the different sites that they found. And now, just a few years ago, someone asked the Smithsonian to comment on that, and they're denying it. And it's their own article, right? So
there's videos showing ancient sculptures high up on the mountains, similar to what you could see on Mount Meru if you look close and study this stuff enough. Like, this place is so old. It's just.
Yeah. So a lot more happened than we, know or led to believe. So right here, I'm just showing you a few like civilizations that a lot of their advancement was just wiped from existence because they did not want us to know how great their civilizations were and their capabilities and advancements and spirituality, really.
Is that the same place?
Yeah. Yeah. So going now back to who were the Maya? Well, millions of people lived over there in the Yucatan area and places that I specified before. They were members of a loose alliance and interconnected city-states. The Maya developed a system of writing as well as a calendar system and sophisticated astronomical charts. They built amazing structures as in Tikal, Chichen Itza, like roads, reservoirs, irrigation networks, terrace fields. Their civilization spanned thousands of square miles across Central America. And here is a timeline for us all. And as we know in here, probably and listening in, that coming up with a timeline is probably not easy to do and could be completely incorrect because as we were told by Dan earlier, you can't carbon date stone and rock. You can only figure out basically who was the last people there, or not even that. If many civilizations have gone through that area and left remnants that have organic material in it so that we can carbon date, we can have a spectrum of people that existed there, but it never ever will mean that this is the original people, because evidence of those could have been wiped out. Great example is in Egypt, where Egypt is dated back much further, and I think there's enough evidence to suggest that it's much older than we've been told. However, we're just dating the last piece of papyrus. We're looking at, we're translating hieroglyphs with our own lens of our conventional timeline, which is keeping us away from really understanding the truth. But it's coming out.
One solution, Neil.
Yeah.
We need our time travel spaceship.
Oh my God. You know, if I could have a superpower, it would probably be time travel.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, okay, we have the Olmec civilization that existed around 1600 BCE to around 350 BCE. So we have the Maya that would definitely around before the Olmec, but could be actually earlier than this date. But it's been shared that around 2600 BCE, that there were the formation of that great civilization, all the way to around 900 AD. And then after that, they still existed in, smaller areas and loose city states, and then obviously exist up until today. But I'm talking about like the civilization and the growth and the expansion of that civilization, which is about 3,000 years, which is a long time for civilization, especially to be in a specific area. They're going to go through a lot of shifts and changes. So they adopted and shared a cultural wisdom with the Olmec. They flourished between 1350 BCE to 250 AD, was basically the heydays. And there was a rapid decline 900 years on CE. They existed in smaller tribes and deeper into the Yucatan Peninsula after that point. And then we have the Aztec Empire, as Dan also said, goes back way beyond this, before this. And they actually kind of have stories to suggest that they were the origins of a lot of native tribes in the whole of Central America. And whether that was their arrogance or whether that was actually the truth, time will only tell, I guess. And but their empire definitely flourished around 1428 CE to 1521 CE. With the help of the Aztec rivals, including the Maya, Cortez mounted an offensive against the Aztecs, defeating the resistance on August 13, 1521. In all, some 240,000 people were believed to have died in the conquest of the Aztec Empire. The Olmec population declined sharply between 400 to 350 AD. Though it is unclear why, archaeologists speculate that the depopulation was caused by environmental changes, specifically by the settling up of rivers, which choked off the water supply. And here are some trade routes of the Maya. You can see, kind of the coastal trade routes and the road trade routes. And interestingly enough, a lot of these trade routes are actually now just the local roads and highways connecting these areas. So what did the Maya trade? And I did tell you guys, this is a practical journey. Like, we've heard about the spirituality, the esoteric, the ceremony, the calendar, but let's talk about the people and what they actually did, when they were, let's talk, as well as all of that, let's also talk about the people and what actually happened in the interaction, so we can kind of like imagine, how they lived their lives. So in the trade routes, they traded fish, squash, yams, corn, honey, beans, turkey, vegetables, cacao. They traded raw materials, limestone, marble, jade, wood, copper, gold. They had manufactured goods. They had paper books, they had furniture, they had jewelry, they had clothing, carvings, toys, weapons, luxury goods. There was even a service sector. And in Palenque, which hopefully I get to today, there is actually a whole area that was dedicated to the service sector within astronomy and mathematics and government. But they had mathematicians, farming consultants, artisans, architects, astronomers. They had scribes, artists, and they would sell their services. Now, this is just from Google Maps here, showing you the map.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, I was just about to say, if you want to jump in anytime, let's make it like a discussion.
Okay, because what you just pointed out there, what I started seeing and feeling in my knowing intuition bodies, this cyclical nature of this planet with the floods, the ongoing every 6,000 to 8,000 years plus a regular 12,000 something year cycle, like where civilizations will build up and then they get flooded out, and then people build from the remnants. Like some remnants survived, like with furnishings or advanced architecture, things like that. But then they kind of just had remnants of that. And that probably, I mean, goodness knows how many times that has happened on this planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is just mind-boggling to think about what the emergence of us actually comprehending what has been going on here.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's so beautiful. Like it's so interesting, just the way that we could have lost information, cataclysms could have occurred, and then we had to pick up the pieces. And not like when cataclysms occur and a lot of things get wiped out, what I'm realizing from my research now is that not everybody has all the information of how to create and do everything that was in the past age or the past few years. So even though they might know about it, they might not know how to create it. So different civilizations pick up the pieces wherever they're at.
Like they might have this advanced piece of technology that's sitting there and they use it, or they use it as a decoration, or they can still utilize it, but they don't know how to build it, or some strange combination of those things.
Yeah. And then it becomes like a metaphor in some ancient scripture of the times they had this, you know?
And then there's translations, and then they mistranslate words, and then I mean, and now we're just shaking our head going, what in the world is going on?
Yeah. Well, a great example of that is the term Yucatan, which I'll get to, the translation of the word Yucatan. Okay, so here is the map, just because I like to show maps of just where we're talking about, right down here. This is Playa del Carmen, as you can see, is pinned as a home for me because like I love Playa del Carmen. That's where I'm going to be in 2 weeks. And a few people on right now are in Tulum, right here. So this whole area is basically where after the migration routes that was inhabited, but it went all the way up to Chiapas, Tabasco area, and all the way far down south. So excavation, let's talk about excavation. Well, the jungle, a lot of people aren't aware of this, wasn't as thick as it is now in ancient times. So a lot of the reason why we're finding all these structures everywhere in the jungle is actually a lot of these structures were a part of the same exact like city or town or whatever you might want to call it, metropolis. However, because it's overgrown with jungle, we're only finding little parts. For example, in Uxmal, right next to Uxmal, there's like 3 other archaeological sites within like a few miles. However, if you have, not as much jungle and jungle around, then that whole area could have actually been one area combined with roads connecting them, but actually part of one city.
They've been doing, they've been finding things out about that around Angkor Wat too, like where just like all this jungle is built up, but there's miles and miles of infrastructure and city and temples and everything that they're finding.
Yeah. And they actually, about that, they just found a couple of years ago or within the last 2 years, another one that I think that's what you're talking about, a place next to Angkor Wat that's as amazing and has even more features that are blowing people's mind that they believe was a part of Angkor Wat.
Yeah. So in other words, this vast global civilization was far more interconnected and enormous than we still believe.
We try to think, well, I guess we don't try to think, maybe for the most part, a lot of people, individuals in the world believe that we're the most globalized we've ever been. But there's been parts of times within our history that a lot of parts of the earth was extremely globalized, and a lot of communication was happening and was really intricate. It might have taken a long time to get there, unless of course they had some flying crafts or some sort of light body transportation. However, the trade was going on, culture was being shared, for thousands and thousands of years.
Well, if we go back to what we were talking about with, was it Miguel or yeah, I think it was Miguel, about the androgynes, there was first 2 androgyne civilizations followed by the Lemurian and the Atlantean, and now we're in the 5th root race here. But the 2 androgyne, I mean, those beings may have been what we hear about with the angels in their light bodies who hadn't completely descended into their animal bodies yet.
Right.
Potentially. That's what it just made me think of when you said that.
Definitely. So they're previously undiscovered sites being found every year. it's such an exciting place, and that's why I'm really happy to go live there soon and just be there for over a month right now. Is because I'm going to go to a lot of places that have just been recently unexcavated myself. And a little plug for the Portal to Ascension YouTube channel here and my weekly Portal to Ascension show. As of 2 weeks from now, every Tuesday, my weekly Portal to Ascension show will be at an ancient site because, awesomely enough, the internet and the data connection and T-Mobile works great at all these ancient sites. So I'm going to be there streaming and setting it up and doing a whole thing and taking people on live tours of some of these ancient sites. So there are thousands of unexcavated, unexplored temples. And here's just one article here, one of many, where a Canadian kid, you might have heard this, the little young kid had discovered through using Google Earth, had discovered a lost Maya city. And it was, again, hundreds of temples within I think it was Guatemalan jungle. And then here's another one. The lost world of the Mayas finally emerging from the jungle. This is just 2 years ago. Archaeologist Thomas Garrison has spotted the buried remnants of the Maya Road, a ribbon of limestone that once cut through the landscape. The road is just one piece of a vast network leading to terrace fields, reservoirs, defensive fortifications, and more, all sprawling invisibly through the forest. And they even have like a little map of it here. Lidar study areas. So the questions we still have is, how complex was their society, right? And maybe some of us don't have that question, but conventionally it said that a lot of the information of the Mayas were lost to time, burnt, maybe the Spanish didn't want us to learn so much about them. So there isn't as much detailed written down text from them, or maybe that's just not the way they communicated. How did city-states grow and fall and grow again? That's a question, because it seemed like they had rises and falls. How did civilization untouched by the Iron Age rise from the jungle like that, only just to fall apart? So there is now this new technology that I guess isn't so new, it's been around for a few years, called Lidar, light detection and ranging. Bathes the jungle canopy in a stream of laser beams delivered from planes flying above. As the light bounces back, it creates precise map of surface contours beneath the forest canopy. 60,000 structures found in Guatemala since they started implementing this, just in Guatemala, right? In jungle there. And this is truly amazing. Lidar actually makes me smile from my heart, because the fact is that, and this is a side note on a different ancient civilization, the Sahara is the largest unexcavated area on planet Earth. They literally don't think they need to do anything about it. However, 13,000 years ago, the whole of the Sahara was a lush, beautiful land with oasis, and basically like an oasis you would see in a movie, right? Because during the last ice age, all the way north to around maybe just south of Italy, into maybe the tip of Morocco, and then the same kind of distance from the South Pole was pretty much in ice. But where wasn't? Well, a huge strip rotating around the center of the Earth where the Sahara went right through, and the Sahara connects to Egypt. So the Egyptian civilization, I believe, and a lot of other people believe, that actually spanned probably throughout the Sahara, or other great civilizations coexisted with them at that time. So just the fact that they've not excavated that area, I feel that part of us having to accept a new timeline of human history is going to come out of the Sahara. And that's going to be a whole other presentation. I'm going to do a presentation just on the Sahara, 3 hours of awareness on that. And so getting back to this, LIDAR is what is allowing us to discover all of these things.
Now, yes, the LIDAR, that's what I was talking about for Angkor Wat too. And so do you know about the Eye of the Sahara?
Yes, yes.
Bright Insight on YouTube has about 3 or 4 really good
videos
on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's the one, his videos is what inspired me to create the presentation.
Yeah, because it shows you the mud flood. It shows you how the mud goes right over that area, just like the legends talk about of Atlantis. And so the Eye of the Sahara is this Atlantean, literally matches the dimensions exactly mentioned in Plato's book. And then all that sand on top of the Sahara. I mean, I've heard everything from that was maybe as part of a mud flood, or because it was under the ocean, or maybe it was dumped on there. Maybe some whole civilization came and just dumped a whole bunch of sand on there. I mean, we just don't know right now.
Right. And it's also thought that when the end of the last ice age, major ice age occurred around 13,000 years ago, that there a huge tidal wave basically went in from North Africa, Morocco, all the way into where the Sahara is, basically wiping out so much civilization, greenery, and all the beauty and the oasis that was there, and basically just wiped it out. And
Yeah.
that could have been the beginning of the actual desert.
Right. And that, yeah, I mean, that kind of, that's a way, has a more logical explanation from our current mindset for sure.
So these discoveries suggest that Central America supported a civilization that was at its peak 1500 years ago, more advanced than ancient Greek and Chinese cultures. That's very important because what we have now being taken within the Western world of philosophy is that modern civilization, including democracy, and just being good people, I guess, started in Greece. Even when we go back to philosophers, the Greek philosophers, they even speak about where they got their information from. Pythagoras talks about ancient Egypt. Plato talks about ancient India. However, when we're taught about it in school, we're taught about modern society and civilization stemming from Greece time. And another reason for that is we can track our evolution linearly since that time because most of that time was actually documented. If you go before the Greek civilization, that's when things kind of get weird because now you start finding all these other civilizations that seem to be much more advanced than the Greeks were, and that changes the linear timeline to more of a wave, if you will, up and down.
Yeah, and not to digress too much, but another keynote of a lot of these ancient civilizations is that they had a universal spiritual comprehension and they weren't boxed into religiosity or dogma the way that we do now.
Exactly. And here's an image of Lidar of the Guatemalan jungle here and just some structures that were found. And this is just how it kind of looks when they do Lidar imaging. See that pyramid right there?
That's cool.
Yeah. So to go even further into some Maya discoveries, this is the one that's going to be on our tour for next year. Archaeologists have unearthed a large ancient palace in Mexico, likely used by the Maya elite more than 1,000 years ago. The palace was found in Coluba, a Mayan city near today's Cancun, probably like within an hour from Cancun in eastern Mexico, said anthropology experts working for Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History. Experts from the institute say the palace, which was 6 meters high and 55 meters long, over half a length of a football pitch, was probably inhabited around 600 to 1050 AD. Here is the beginning of the excavation to 2019.
And that looks like those bricks. Can you go back to that picture again?
Yeah.
Those bricks are similar in a way, not exactly like it. Well, but they're like the ones that are like sort of melded together and have just this very fine line you can't even get a pin through.
Yeah.
Cracks, and how that almost looks like a newer version of them trying to model what they used to do, which was with those enormous stones. They used to do that kind of cutting to keep the wall strong, even if there was an earthquake or something like that.
Yeah, and my presentation just spazzed out, so let me get back to it. Yeah, and look, you can tell the difference between the reconstructed area and then the area that here, where am I at? Boom, from current slide. Okay, so this right here is reconstructed. You can see the difference in color, the cement, right? Yeah, actually, and then that over there is the original, but even the original, there are no gaps. They used like some sort of cement.
There it is. Okay, we see it now. We weren't seeing it there for a second. We were seeing it in the slide. Okay, yeah, go ahead, say it again.
So this is the reconstructed area, right? This is the original. And you can see even the original here, it's basically, there's no gaps. They have it cemented together. Okay, so what we're going to explore, believe it or not, that was only the introduction. So let's see how far we can get into here. What and where we will attempt to explore in today's journey through the Maya Empire. Altona, Merida, we're going to skip because that's just where I started my tours usually. So that's not really going to be any ancient sites there. Uxmal, Caba, Campeche, Palenque, and possibly Tulum. So, and also ancient use of cenotes. I'll touch on that a little. Why were we told the Maya vanished? Maya architecture, ancient cacao trade and its importance, the Maya in 2012, and Maya temescales. sweat lodges. So let's start here in Altona, located 31 miles north of Belize City. And if I ever see you guys in person or talk to you, I'll tell you the story about this whole thing because it was really, really interesting going to Belize. But we went to Belize and I thought I didn't really do any research on where we were going. So I went to Belize City because I thought that was the most beautiful place that would be there because it's called Belize City. I decided to be spontaneous because usually I plan everything out. But I was like, oh, we're in Mexico. Let's just go over the border to Belize and just see what happens. And then we go there. And then we actually end up in the place where the largest crime rate in the whole of South America, where literally everybody on the street or wearing black or red. And then I was like jokingly, we rolled into town and I was jokingly saying to Sol, I was like, look, Bloods and Crips. And she was like, we started laughing. We go and research. We go and research when we go home and we find out that Belize City is like the home of the Bloods and Crips in the whole of South America and is one of the most violent places ever. So a whole entire story came out of that. That was actually kind of funny. Maybe I'll tell you guys another time. But as we were leaving Belize City, we decided, let's make the best of our experience here. And we stopped over at one of the ancient sites, which is Altona. And in Altona...
I just realized something.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I'm blurting it out in the middle of your thing. But Altona made me think of Atlanta, Georgia.
Altona.
Atlanta. And in other words, this Atl and Atlanta, because you said Georgia was connected to the Mayan culture too. And so there's that word again. So anyway, continue, please. My little brain is connected.
Yeah. And words are so important because like, that's how we can track it back. You know, it's like, it's so interesting the way it works out. Altona. So at Altona, a ceremonial center with two main plazas, 13 structures, including the Temple of Sun God or the Temple of Masonry altars. Recognized in 1957 by Anderson, A.H. Anderson, the archaeological commissioner, he had followed up on a report made by the Public Works Department of some questionable mounds in the area where they were planning to push some roads. He found them to be archaeological mounds. And let me just say, based on what you said, Shariah, some of these names go back ancient, but some of these names were actually only given to them within the last couple hundred years, you know? So earliest settlement around 200 BCE, and the first structure there was around 900 AD. And then, I'm sorry, say that again, 200 BC, 100 AD, we see the first structures being created in Altona, and then around 800 years later, we see the decline, because that was one of the routes when the migration routes, when they came north, they went further north into basically mainland Mexico and then south into the Yucatan Peninsula.
Wow.
And here are some of the routes just to show you. This is an image I took at Altona. You can see here's Altona here, and these are some routes that were, you know, going up north, and the different things that they were actually trading as well on these routes. And as I said before, many of these routes are actually the current highways, which is pretty cool.
Interesting how gangs and stuff like that got into these really important places.
Oh my God. There's a documentary on how, on Vice, there's a documentary on how the US exported gang violence to Belize. And it was the movie what's the movie? The Blood and Crip movie I forgot the name, but it's a really famous movie about the Bloods and Crips. They saw the movie in Belize, and then they started it up there, and they became the central Bloods and Crips place in the whole world from this movie. It's very interesting.
That's insane. Wow.
Okay, this is me at the bottom of a pyramid taking a picture about to climb those steps. And, you know, I've jokingly said quite a few times that the Maya people must have had some great abs, because, you know, like not only does it look like from hieroglyphs and from the current people that they're kind of short people, but these steps are insane. Like just going up them is a great workout. And here's us at the top of it. This is Altona. All right, this takes us into the first mini documentary of Altona. So we're going to go now, everybody, into a visual experience of this area. So in this map here, you can see the trade routes of the Mayans, sea trade routes, the land trade routes, and the borders. You have the blue right here, which is the sea trade routes. And you can see right now we're in Belize. And from down here, where it's Guatemala, you'll take the trade routes all the way up to where we were before in Tulum and the ruins over there. And then we have the red routes, that some roads that actually connect these areas right now, basically the same routes that they used back in the day. And then we have the borders right here for the different regions of the Mayan Empire. Starting over here, I guess this is Tabasco and Campeche, going all the way down to below Belize into the bottom of Guatemala, right, cutting into some of the Honduras. You can see the last border right there. Welcome everyone to Altona. Here's the entrance in the beginning. Climbing up some pyramids, steps that are over thousands of years old. It's the only pyramid here that we're allowed to climb up. And when we're at the top, we'll take a look at the whole grounds. Altona was not the name given by the Mayans. When they found this in 1965, they did not know what it was called and still do not know. So now they call it Altona, but it seems like it was a place of ceremony and rituals. There's an entrance right here into the pyramid. We're not allowed to walk up it. This is some sort of quarter, some sort of room. And obviously, this isn't how it was found. They've filled in certain parts and reconstructed it. All right, here you can look at the Mayan stonework. This is only partially excavated. You can see the rock placement here. This is basically part of the flat surface that they just excavated a bit, so there's a lot more to this. But this is all they got out. And then the rest of this, out of the few hundred years since the 1700s, the British invasion, this was only found in 1965.
Wow, absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It often seems to me like complexes like that were places where starships would land, because a lot of those celestial beings are known to be taller than regular human people.
Yes.
And so they had bigger structures. They'd land their starships and then they'd sit there. Like some of them seem like places where they'd sit and people would come and learn from them or something like that. I mean, my imagination runs wild, but that's some of the imagery I see when I see things like that.
Well, at Palenque, which I'm going to get to in a bit, there's actually a whole area where those stones, those steps are actually made in this courtyard that everybody did sit on. And there were presentations and things that happened inside the courtyard. And it was the same building that only the mathematicians and the astronomers and the diplomats would live in.
Right. So they would be coming and they would be teaching and giving lectures and trainings around how just kind of like what Hunbat's men we were seeing earlier when he rebuilt his ceremonial place, like creating structures for people to receive the teachings, basically.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So now here we go about the origin of the word Yucatan. There's two possible stories of the word. So when Francisco Hernandez de Cordova arrived on the coast of the Yucatan, he asked the natives where he was. They replied in the native tongue that they didn't understand what he was saying. Because Cordova thought the answer sounded like the word Yucatan, he gave them that name of the region. So the first one that I feel has more merit, because if you even try to research it, this is the one that pretty much comes up, is Yucatan means, I don't know what you're saying, which is kind of cool. And the second one is the name is derived from the Nahuatl word Yucatan, meaning place of richness. The two words are markedly similar, but since Nahuatl is an Aztec language and the first Spanish to land in Yucatan only encountered the Maya, they may have used the Aztec word, or it's the first one. Those are two.
Well, then that Yocatlan, I mean, I'm seeing two things, yoke or yoga and Atlan again.
Yeah, Atlan is everywhere, huh?
Everywhere, yeah. And even Nahuatl.
Yep. So this is the theory on how the Yucatan was formed. One of the theories as to how Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula was formed is about 65. So this is just this, how that whole peninsula, why does it look like the way it looks? Around 65 million years ago, an asteroid crashed to the Earth's surface just north of the city of Merida. So now here's something cool and takes it to the next level. Is there's been at least 3 documented asteroids that have hit that area, and that have created all types of shifts and changes in that area, one of which was documented during the migration of them. And some people believe because of the asteroid collision is why they migrated down south. So it almost seems like there's some sort of energetic magnet underwater there pulling that maybe the asteroid is being attracted to. Something is going on over there.
Fascinating.
And here's the crater, right? That is there. It isn't a theory of whether the asteroid collided or not. It's the theory of whether it was created from the asteroid collision. But the asteroid did collide, and that was where the crater is. And you can kind of see the outline.
And then, yeah, when you talk about asteroids like that, it's like, was it an intentional asteroid or was it a...
Exactly. Yeah, especially if a few of them went and hit the same exact area. Well, yeah. And in my other presentations on galactic history and sound frequency, I talk about this. But through mainstream science now, we're realizing that the Earth adheres to some sort of rhythmic pattern that attracts cataclysms. Okay, yes, there is some sort of cosmic pattern going on with the Earth's position, galactic alignment, solar system within our galaxy that literally attracts collisions at or cataclysms at a rhythmic pattern, meaning every certain 1,000 years, like almost to the T, same exact thing.
1,000. And there's a book called The Adam and Eve Story, which is a declassed book that had been classified until 2013. Then it came out in 2016, and it talks about this. And you can find the PDF online.
That's cool. So this connects directly to cenotes that I'm not going to go too deep in, but I'm going to mention that there are a couple of theories on how cenotes were created. But one of the ones that I feel holds merit is that a lot of the remnants from these asteroids actually created sinkholes and underground lakes in the Yucatan Peninsula rose to the top, creating cenotes. And you can see here, actually, here's like a little more. And here is the outline of the crater and the cenotes.
Oh.
The cenote, you know what cenote is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like an old school cenote picture. I'll show you some new ones. The cenote is all the way around and the fragments all over the Yucatan Peninsula.
Now that coincidence.
So a sinkhole resulting from the collapse of limestone bedrock that exposes groundwater underground lakes equals a cenote. They were commonly used for water supplies by the ancient Maya, extremely sacred places. Cacao trees were grown in cenotes on the sides of them. And the reason why is the cenotes created a perfect microclimate for the cacao trees to grow. They couldn't grow out in the wilderness just regular. The cenote was perfect ecosystem for that. So also the result of multiple meteorites hitting the area. And some think that 65 million year old asteroid that originally created it was also the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. The Maya believed that the cenotes were also a portal to the underworld.
Well, that's interesting because up in, what do you call it, in near Sedona, Montezuma's well, that's where the Hopi say they came out from onto the surface, and also a very deep, almost like a sinkhole. It goes down further than one could imagine.
Yeah. And you could speculate so much because portal to the underworld, asteroid from another planet, asteroid hits the Earth, bringing the frequency of some solar system object. And then the spirit within the cenote was connected to the stars.
Was this like some part of some of these galactic wars that we hear about, or was it just some crazy fluke? And is it how the Earth got off its tilt? Is that cycle, is that circle, is that 15 however many degrees off that the Earth is that supposed to be that way? I've heard that maybe something knocked it off its rocker a while back or something.
I heard that too, and that sounds like it could be the case. I mean, I was thinking during the time of Atlantis that the Earth's axis was straight, which some people go back further than this, but let's say that Atlantis was in its last days at the end of the last ice age, right? 13,000 years ago or so. And maybe before that, but that's all speculation. No one truly knows. It could go back even further than that.
It may, and it also could have to do with the weather. I've heard that it used to be more of a paradise. It used to be more of a good weather all year long kind of scenario on the planet.
Yeah. Well, when the Earth's axis is completely straight, you have the same seasons all the time.
Yeah.
You know? So now let's go into the cacao tree. So the cacao tree, I'm sure everybody here has heard of cacao, which is the precursor to chocolate. We wouldn't have chocolate if it wasn't for cacao. Found throughout the North Amazon and to Central America. Takes 3 to 5 years for the tree to actually begin producing fruit. So they had to be dedicated to that one. Cenotes are the perfect ecosystem for these trees. The sacredness of cacao and the cenote portal combined to create something beautiful for them. The cacao was so important that it was literally used as currency and was more valuable than gold at one point. Trade between citizens usually involves cacao, and we'll see that in a video coming up. Evidence of the use of cacao as a currency goes back all the way to 2000 BCE.
And cacao, so as a permaculturist also, I learned about how vanilla, which is an orchid and actually goes really well, chocolate and vanilla, that it's a symbiotic relationship, and the vanilla vine actually grows on the cacao trees.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as well as exchanging goods, there were also royal tributes, cacao. Maya kings required taxes, and cacao beans were a great way of settling your debt. Around 11 million beans per year were accepted, giving the cream of the crop an endless supply of the dark and delicious cacao.
Yeah, eating a fresh raw cacao bean is quite something.
Yes.
Purple. Do you know if I was wondering this earlier? Did they also grow coffee back then, or was that?
No. There was no evidence of coffee in that area at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to do a presentation on coffee and how we would not be as advanced as a race if it wasn't for coffee. But then we started abusing it. Like the guy who discovers so much mathematics information that we use now. He was actually he was Muslim guy that lived in Islamic Spain. And when he started drinking coffee, all of his ideas started coming from that. And his ideas are literally the foundation for all mathematicians after him.
I mean, I gotta say, I love coffee. I'd love to do that show with you.
Yeah. So here's some more cacao for y'all. And this takes us into the history of cacao mini documentary. And I'm going to go ahead and play this now.
Just as we were walking by, I was asking Neil what does the word Maya mean, and he started talking about how there's an Indian god named Maya, and it's the god of illusion. So he has a belief that the word Maya actually means illusion, and the Mayans believed that this reality was an illusion. But as we were talking about that, we come across a tamarind tree, and it's very interesting. Sol and I used to think that this was straight from Mexico, but it actually is originally from India.
As are many things that Mexicans believe that are native to our land, but they're not, like the mango.
So obviously through the spice trade, like the mango and many other spices came and were dropped off here, and they were inherited by the local culture, and it became a part of their culture, and they've been using it ever since and taking it on as their own. So it's just interesting to note how everything comes from everywhere. So there's some sort of connection there that hasn't been explored, where even their spiritualism was really in connection, in alignment with Indian traditions. So the word cacao comes from the Olmec word cacao, but the word chocolate is actually a combination of the Mayan word choco, which means hot, and ha, which means water. The resulting word choco ha refers to the hot cocoa-based drink that was drunk by the Mayans. And then here is the glyph for cacao. So the origin of the cacao bean is not known. It's thought to have come from an area between Venezuela and Brazil, but it really isn't known because transporting cacao is really difficult, and the cacao bean, the cacao seed, would need to be planted within 10 days of being taken. So if it was, say, from here, somewhere between Venezuela and Brazil, and then when 10 days needed to be taken up to Central America in order to be planted, it would be very difficult to do that. So the theory is that it went with native routes, trade routes over thousands of years, and it slowly kind of made its way up north. So cocoa beans was so rare in the 15th to 16th century that it was used as currency alongside obsidian and alongside copper. There were 3 different forms of currency in cacao that was utilized in order to exchange. And you can see right here, a rabbit was worth, 1 to 10 cacao beans, and a slave at one point, a slave in good health went for 100 cocoa beans. And this continued up until even past the 16th century, after the Spanish conquest of Central America, and it actually increased in value, whereas soon the cacao bean, being so rare, actually became very close to the same amount as 1 real, which was used in Spain. The oldest evidence of coca used as a drink was found in pre-Almanic pottery in the Veracruz region and in Moncaya, the pottery found in the Solcunso region of Chiapas coast, dating back to 2000 BC. And the drink was prepared by roasting, peeling, and grinding cocoa beans, and the resulting paste was then mixed with water and spices. The chocolate was beaten to produce a large amount of foam, which was especially valued by the nobles and offered to the gods. This is just some of what they used. Cacao in the Yucatan was and always has been really rare. It doesn't just grow everywhere. It has to be grown in a microclimate. So the cocoa tree was actually ideal to be grown near cenotes, which are basically when ancient meteorites hit this area, Yucatan area, some time ago. Underground lakes would come up and fill up the cenotes and create these beautiful, pristine microclimates and basically sinkholes. And however, in the ones with too much water, it didn't work out. There were some cenotes that only had a little bit of water in them that would create the perfect microclimate and the perfect shade for cacao trees. And that's where the Mayans would grow the cacao. And here is the process of selecting the cocoa beans. The impurities would have to be removed, like stones, moldy, broken beans, or pods with no beans. This can be done manually or sometimes with this type of sieve. It slowly basically put the cacao seed in a bag and put it directly in the ground. However, recently with grafting and the new advancements in how we grow plants, there's been grafting. And here we see the routes on the years on when cacao went to different areas of the world. And it's really amazing. If you start with number 1, we go Mexico to the Philippines in 1670, then the Philippines to the island of Abon, 1750 to 1778, Philippines to Indonesia, and then Indonesia and the Philippines and Sri Lanka. And then we got Sri Lanka to Madagascar, and then we got Trinidad in 1880, and you can see it keeps going on. So this is basically how it was taken from Central America and taken all over the world. the cacao bean obviously connects to many different traditions, and within the spiritual community, there's cacao ceremonies all the time in which they're utilizing this sacred plant in ceremony to bring in spirits, upliftment, positivity, energy, combining it with yoga and different types of practices. Reason for this is cacao is not only the highest, or at least one of the highest antioxidants on the planet, but it's been used as a sacred medicine, as you saw in the ceremony earlier, for thousands of years. And cacao is just extremely good for you all around, and without the sugar and without the processing, it's really something pure. And it's interesting when you talk about chocolate, it's almost like a guilty pleasure, but the original chocolate was bitter tasting, wasn't even sugary, and was literally there in order to heal and align you. Like, I just had a cup of cacao, I had heartburn, and now I don't have heartburn anymore. Like, it literally does heal you. So it's interesting to note that it's kind of been become something that it really wasn't originally intended for.
Cheers. Salud. Salud a la vida. Cheers. Y el cacao.
Cheers.
So I hope you all enjoyed the history of cacao. There's a few things we missed about, obviously, the Spanish conquistadors and them coming down here and them taking cacao all over the world, and what they did and how they exploited the cacao bean and the Mayan people, and how cacao and chocolate just became worldwide and prevalent. And they added sugar to it, and whereas naturally it was with cinnamon and chili. So a lot of different variations, but this is where, cacao and cocoa and chocolate began. So that was just a little bit on cacao. Let's skip forward a little bit there too. So first introduced to the Spanish at their meetings with the Moctezuma in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan in 1519. The emperor consumed mass amounts of cacao. They witnessed how it was created and whipped. Cacao was introduced to the Spanish court in 1544 to Prince Philip. Within a century, chocolate had spread to France, England, and elsewhere in Western Europe. Demand for this beverage led the French to establish cacao plantations in the Caribbean, while Spain subsequently developed their cacao plantations in the Venezuelan and Philippine colonies. So as I showed in the image where I went to the Philippines, it was in Spain and then Philippines and then beyond. Traditionally, pre-Hispanic beverages made with cacao are still consumed in Mesoamerica. These include the Huacan beverage known as tejate. All right, moving on to another site in the Yucatan Peninsula. And here is Uxmal, the place that I spoke about so many times, and what feels like my second home, just a little south, an hour and 10 minutes south of Merida, which is usually where I fly into first. And this is a map, a layout of the archaeological site there. So Uxmal is an important Maya city which flourished between the 6th and 10th century CE. It's one of the best preserved sites of the Maya sites of all of them. It's huge. It's bigger than even the excavated area because the surrounding area is still in the jungle that haven't been fully excavated yet. Uxmal is listed as UNESCO actually as a World Heritage Site. It was settled in the 6th century CE or earlier. It was between 850 and 925 CE that Uxmal fully established itself as the capital of a collection of lesser cities in the eastern Puc region. And I want to just mention here and point out that it became bigger and established as the full established capital. At the same time, the other civilizations from south and north were migrating into that area. So that is definitely not a coincidence. Along with other northern sites like Chichen Itza, Uxmal survived the collapse, which affected most of the other Maya cities. They actually flourished during that time. This is an image I took from the hotel that we're staying at, because the site was only like 3 miles away from the hotel. But I'm standing on the balcony of our hotel, so we had a really good view. And then there's actually a pathway that goes through the jungle from the back of the hotel all the way to the archaeological site there. At Uxmal, there is something called the Pyramid of the Magician. This structure has 2 separate building phases, beginning in the 6th century CE and then ending in the 10th century CE, so around 400 years. The pyramid is distinctive for its rounded corners, which make it almost oval in shape when seen from above, making the pyramid unique in Maya architecture. A steep staircase embellished with carved masks climbs the west side and reaches a doorway carved to represent the mouth of a terrible serpent monster. Maybe not so terrible. And here it is right here. In this area, I think this is a video. No, it's not. Okay. This is one of the temples here. And this temple that I'm in at this moment in this picture was thought to be a place where they did ceremonies before they played the ball game, which I'll show you the ball court in a second. It's right down here.
The so-called ball game.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And then this is, I think, just me walking a little guided tour of the area. This kind of structure in the roof is very, very common for Puk architecture, which was a style of architecture during a specific period in the Maya history. Here we go again. This temple here. I remember this part. These are where the habitations were, houses. People used to live. Let's go inside this temple. Out the other side. Oh, nothing in here. And now this is us being in one of the courtyards in Uxmal, and just trying to show you here the acoustics. They had some advanced awareness of just not only ventilation on where to create windows to like harness the natural flow of air so that they could not have an AC but still have a cooling system. Like not only that, but their level of architectural genius to make sure that you can have the perfect acoustics and resonance in specific areas is amazing. That in this area, if you were all the way in one area and just speaking and whispering, you can hear that person all the way in the other area. Maybe if there's more people there, you wouldn't be able to hear it, but with just the two of us, we could actually do that. And not only that, when you clap, you actually can hear that sound back at you. And I think the sound in this one wasn't as great. So let's just see if we can hear something here. So the Mayans had a really great understanding of acoustics in a lot of different areas. When you clap, things like that, there's some echo back, feedback. Plus, when there's like only a few people here, and then if she's up there and I'm over here and she like whispers, I can hear her. I was so exhausted over here at this point from walking up these temples.
Oh my gosh, you got your abs.
Oh,
Look at that beautiful design pattern on the wall there.
Oh, the Mayan priestess is here waiting for me.
So beautiful.
Mhm.
That stonework. mean, I guess that looks kind of like it was built on top of that older one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to say. I mean, there're two distinct stone types and sizes anyway.
Yep. Yeah, and some of these stones are stones they put in just to hold the structure up.
I see. You mean because it had started collapsing?
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's where the vampires can go.
Oh gosh. We so need a time travel device so we can go back and see what.
Dude, tell me. I'll be the first one to jump into that time machine.
Come on, let's go.
I'd be like, as long as you have plumbing. All right. So here's another little video. Okay, so this is a temple up here. The conventional theory is that this was a temple, but my theory is this is where they did their Stairmaster routine every morning. Well, they used to stretch right here. I didn't really think that was a joke. You know, it's not really pop knowledge yet, but I think it's definitely a good exercise.
It could have been like what do you want to call it? Civil building, like offices of ambassadors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is called Temple of the Priestesses. But the interesting thing is, a lot of these names were given by the Spanish later.
Right.
They don't really know what they are.
We don't know what the heck. We gotta open them. Basically, the idea is, if you guys, some of you probably do geek out like we do on these things, we just got to keep an open mind. Like, what does it actually look and feel like to you, as opposed to what it's being said to be?
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I got the note that the videos weren't showing up well, and that's because I need to optimize my video clip. So Shariah, let me know, because basically when I optimize for video clip, the videos show up well, but the regular presentation normally gets blurry, you know? So you tell me when I go to the next slide if that's blurry.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, so here we go. A little mini tour of Uxmal.
Yeah, it wasn't really blurry. It was just choppy.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, this is better so far.
So here we are, everyone, at the Uxmal pyramids, and we've been to a few different destinations, and now we're at Uxmal, and this is actually one of the main archaeological sites of the Mayan culture. At its heyday, this site had around 15,000 people living here, and the date on this hasn't actually been discovered. They're not too sure when it was, but we do know that it was still in use up until at least 1100 AD, when the Toltec came in and they took over. We're gonna go up there now and check out the site. So Uxmal is a really, really large area. This was one of the main sites for Mayan culture and Mayan empire. This is actually kind of an aqueduct, and there was not too much rainfall. There was a lack of rivers, so they actually created these in order to collect rainwater, and it would go down the tube right there. They would collect it so that they can use it later, and that they can use it to drink and also for agriculture. You can see here the main pyramid in Uxmal, and as you can tell, a lot of this actually has been reconstructed. The concrete there, the filling. So just imagine how this looked like when they first found it and what it took to reconstruct this. So they had to put in some time and energy to get this up to be able to sustain and last longer. Here we are, just below this temple right here, and right above the main ground where the main pyramid is. Here is the ball game right here. You can take a look. You can see the hoop. And that's where they would put the ball through. And there's the temple There's a lot of speculation as to what some of these things were used for, but it seems that this right here could have been a ceremonial area where rituals and rites and different ceremonies were performed before they would have the ball game at the field. This is a huge structure with many different little rooms inside. This ground is huge, and you can see here's another temple right here. Let's go inside. Take a look at the structure and how they would build their roofs. Exploring some of the rooms. And I believe on the other side we'll see actually quarters where they lived. So it looks like this was the living quarters for quite a few different homes. There were other rooms here and they're no longer in existence. Just this is what's left of them. Meditate and levitate. Waves of frequencies resonate higher. I'm connected with the provider. Source of cosmic energy. We're going to be one single entity. Expansion remedied. Oneness must breathe. Exhale and let free. Consciousness to be. Experiences you and me. Souls of interdimensional beings to feel, hear, and see. This third-dimensional planetary existence, all time can be found in one instance. In this realm of linearity, atoms in anarchy, quantum polarity, the epitome of creation, facing our egos, acquiring patience, waiting to let go of our nations and join the federation of souls that will take us to the fifth world. What is the truth, guys? Did they vanish? Everything is speculation. Everything has been written and rewritten by the victors. All the information has been given to us about who the Mayan were, what they did, what the purpose of these temples were, by the individuals that conquered them, that thought they were savages. That's where the stories come from. The stories about their life come from those who took them over and didn't want anybody to realize their greatness. Does this look like it was created by a bunch of savages? Or does it look like that there was some sort of advanced technology at work here, and that these temples were built for a reason?
Wow, that was epic. Beautiful poem and beautiful kind of synopsis there with the questions you were just asking us a moment ago.
Yeah, and that was the first time that we went there. So since then, I've learned a lot more. And actually, I'm going to go there again this time, and I'm going to correct some of the things that I found out to be a little different than what I originally believed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close to. Oh wow, we're at 7:08 already.
Okay, so I'll do a little bit longer here because I want to get to Palenque if possible.
Wonderful.
Is my webcam showing up okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. So Santa Elena, which is right next to Uxmal, which is where Jaime and his family's from. This is his sister and his niece, and just us hanging out over there. And you can see Santa Elena is right here. Uxmal's right there, 20-minute distance. That is also where there's an eco-village, an intentional community that actually one of their books that they really enjoy and love over there is the Keys of Enoch by the Hurtaks. So it's actually an intentional community that really are in alignment with the Hurtaks, that they go there and visit. That's also in Santa Elena. This is us at Jaime's house when he had to go to work, and we're hanging out with his family, and I quickly grabbed a picture of him. So Santa Elena, there are ancient Maya artifacts also been discovered there. And Jaime is actually a descendant of the Maya. His grandfather was the one that facilitated the temazcales in that area. So what happens is, what has happened for the most part is a lot of hotels and resorts, they actually come in. Let me look at you guys directly as I say this. A lot of hotels and resorts they actually have come in over the past few decades, and they've built on, land that was originally had artifacts on their ancient sites that were owned by Maya. And what happened with the Temescals? And if you don't know what Temescale is, Temescales, it's a sweat lodge, right? And that's what we call it here in North America, at least. So what they did is they hired the local shamans for pennies to work the Temescal in the hotels. So almost all the original Temescales that were, I'm just going to say sweat lodge just so that everybody understands what I'm saying. All the original sweat lodges were basically kind of like had gone, and all the hotels took over the land, but they put sweat lodges in their hotels in order for people to get the Mayan experience, the watered down Mayan experience that the tourists want when they come to the Yucatan. So Jaime was one of these individuals that his grandfather was actually the shaman of the local Uxmal area, one of the few people that were left back in that time that was still running the Temescals using the original Maya traditions. Then the hotel came in, and then the hotel hired his grandfather to run the Temescal there for virtually hardly any money at all. And then his grandfather passed away, passed down the tradition to Jaime, and then Jaime took over. So then we go to the Yucatan around 5-6 years ago, and we're at this hotel where I took the picture of the actual pyramid that you saw from my balcony, and he was there working the Temescal. So we went to the Temescal, we met him, became good friends with him on the first time, even though I couldn't speak any Spanish at that time, not that fluently. I can now for the most part, speak some of it. And we became great friends, him, Sol, and myself. And from there, our friendships flourished over 6 years. Now we're connected with his family as well. And we've actually created a Temescal away from the hotel and given Jaime the opportunity to no longer work at the hotel, but to actually do the original Maya traditions in that area. And I'm going to show you the sweat lodge, the Portal to Ascension sweat lodge in Santa Elena. Let's go back to the map here. Here's the map. Here's Santa Elena. That pointer right there is where our sweat lodge is. That's Portal to Ascension sweat lodge. And this is how it looked in the beginning when he first WhatsApped us the image here. Basically, he was having some issues working at this hotel. He told us everything. He gets paid $1.50 a day, and he does like 10 temescals, and his gas there and back is like 50 cents. So he got $1 a day, and he had a whole family to feed. So I asked him, I said, well, how much would it cost? Because he had his land. This land that he built on was left to him by his grandfather in Santa Elena. So I said, how much would it cost if you created your own sweat lodge? He gave me the number in pesos. I translated it into English, converted it into English, and it was exactly $555, right? So I was like, all right, it's a good investment. So I Western Unioned him $555, and then the beginning of the Portal to Ascension to Mezcal. And this is how it first started. And that's the foundation. And now this is how it looks right there. Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. So we're going to start building on this land, and we're going to make it a whole place where his whole family can work, and they can work without having to work for these corporations that are taking over the land. And this is where we're going to, a good part of our tours that we're going to do every year, starting next year, is going to be 3 days in that area, exploring archaeological sites and starting every day at this Temescal. And he just finished creating the showers about a couple of weeks ago. So it's being built out. So right next to Uxmal, which is not too far away, is another place called Kaaba. And Kaaba basically translates to royal snake in the hand. It dates back to the 9th century AD, which is another very interesting place that manifested around the same time all these other tribes were migrating into the area. So these new cities were being formed. So it's not speculation at this point. The migration routes and the foundation of these places pretty much show us, what happened. It's the second largest architecture in the Puk style. There's an ancient road connecting Uxmal called Sakbe, and plural Sakbiob, which means white way, right? So this white road, translated into English, means the Milky Way road, basically our galaxy road. So the road that connected Kaaba to Uxmal, which is still the road that currently exists, that you would basically take a car to go to each point on, was actually named after the galaxy. And it was basically the Milky Way galaxy road that connected these two areas. There's a lot of astronomical alignments and synchronicities when it comes to these places that had a lot to do with our galaxy and the position of our solar system within the galaxy. So you heard me say a few times the Puuc style architecture. So just to be even more practical here, I'm going to go a little deeper into what that means. It's a region in the Mexican state of Yucatan and a Mayan architectural style in that region. The word Puuc is derived from the Maya term hill. The Puuc hill extends into northern Campeche and western Quintana Roo. This style began at the end of the late Classic, flourished between the 6th and 10th century. Migration routes right in the middle of there, moving down south into this area. So the Puuc style seemed to be a new style of architecture that came from these individuals that were migrating from the areas that they could no longer sustain themselves within. Uxmal is known actually as the most famous Puuc architectural site. It's decorated with carefully cut veneer stones. Upper facades are richly decorated with intricate stone mosaics, often alternating repeated geometrical elements with more elaborate figurative sculpture. The Maya rain god Chac was depicted a lot. Okay, so let me just connect some dots here. These sites, Uxmal, Kaaba, if they weren't created around the time that the places were being migrated from north and south of the Maya civilization, they were at least ended up flourishing and getting more of a population due to those migration routes. The architectural style changed a bit. The architectural style changed, it looks like, to better accommodate weather. Also, the architectural style shifted and they started now putting a different god as the main god. Which god was it? Chac, the rain god. Drought, famine, makes perfect sense. We are in Cacao, which is another archaeological site that connects, it's not too far from Uxmal, around 25-minute drive from Uxmal. And here it is. It looks amazing. Very inexpensive to get into this one. Hardly anybody comes here because Uxmal is the main site. Tidbit of cool information is that the Mayans actually made Uxmal site to be in alignment with the stars in the Orion's belt, just like in Egypt. And they considered the Milky Way called the Great White Road. They would call it the Great White Road. And in a previous video, I have what they called it, the name of it. And they had a white road, a white paved road from Uxmal, 25 minutes all the way down to this site of Kaaba. And that Great White Road was supposed to symbolize the Milky Way galaxy. Well, here we are. The interesting thing is that some Mayan archaeological sites were actually rediscovered later, but Uxmal in this area was never forgotten. And even after it was abandoned, people will come back here all the time. After Catholicism, after the conquistadors, they would keep coming back and always paying homage to the Uxmal site because of its alignment to the stars and its connection to their gods. It's a Mayan ghost.
Dice que es un espanto.
Wow, this is nice.
Fue una sorpresa para nosotros porque nosotros pensábamos que era el otro.
Okay. Here we are at the Mayan gym, ready to do some ab crunches up these steps. I guess we're not allowed to. We are So we just found out that this site, Kaaba, was one of the first sites that was built in this area. So I think Palenque is a little older, but so one of the first sites built in around 900 CE-ish during the migration routes. So it's extremely important because it seemed to be one of the first that came from all these individuals coming to this area. around the Uxmal area, there's multiple sites that are all connected. And as I said in my previous video, through the Great White Road, which symbolizes the Milky Way galaxy. And this one was one of the first ones created before they actually went to Uxmal and created that too. So let's go up these steps. I heard there's a really huge iguana up here, so let's see if we can find it. Good view. So we just found out that some more images of the area. All right, let's just keep moving forward here. Let's get to Palenque. This is the same Kaaba as well. The rain god, Pug architecture style. All right, final stretch here, everybody. Let's do Palenque. Palenque I had to get to because it's actually my favorite site. I was there for my birthday for the last 2 years, which was pretty awesome because I had this huge connection to it. So I just wanted to be there for my birthday.
This is such a treat to get to see all this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, okay, this is a panoramic distorted view of it all because we're trying to fit it all into one image here. But this is just a portion, not even like 5% of the site. Beyond this, where all those huge trees are, there's 1,000 plus temples. I think 1,400 other unexcavated temples and pyramids.
Stairs of a pyramid.
So we're in the jungle. When you get to Palenque, you can go 2 ways. You can do a tour in the jungle and go and look at and walk over 1,400 plus unexcavated temples and pyramids, or you can go to the main site, which I just showed you in the other graphic. So this is us going through the jungle.
Stairs of a pyramid, and you can see it because it elevates.
All those rocks are the pyramid. We're on top of it. ¿Cuántos piramidas temples?
1473.
1,473. 1,473 unexcavated pyramidas in this area right here. And here's one of them. Wow. Just wonder what's inside these things.
You talked on right there.
So we're climbing up the steps of an unexcavated pyramid now. Oh, just rained the last 3 days, so it's extremely slippery.
Entonces estas piedras son so these rocks are actually pyramid rocks.
Las raíces del árbol, y esta es la raíz de una liana. Mira cómo sigue el tronco y sigue hacia arriba.
Oh, so
That's just a video about the tree. We will skip over that one.
Pyramids. Other one.
Us? They're on top of each other.
Ya. Mira la liana. Hasta allá se puede.
¿Serán estos más chicos como más
Casas o edificios habitacionales.
Oh, so these are habitational homes or buildings that were always habitated. The other ones are more like
Mayan rocks?
Yeah.
Pyramid rocks.
Pyramid rocks.
So, well, what they were just saying is that this side, a lot of habitations, right? A lot of residential.
Yes.
The other side, ceremonial, scientists, astronomers,
Ceremony place.
government.
Ceremony temples.
Yeah.
And there we have a big pyramid. Here is more. Maya habitation. Maya
Yeah, a little
homes.
smaller.
Yeah, it's more.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna probably do 15 more minutes, Shreya, so I can finish Palenque, okay?
Wonderful.
All right, so Palenque. Here's kind of a map of it, including the jungle area and the temples that they've kind of mapped out. As you can see, it's incredibly massive. And this is just a smaller excavated area here, which I'm about to show you.
So
And this is just another unexcavated
have
pyramid. You can see there's an entrance
the top part
to the
of
pyramid there.
that they call the cupola.
So Palenque is thought to have kind of started its foundations, even though I personally believe it goes back further than this, but that goes into a whole speculative area, so I'm not going to get into that. 200 BC to around 900 AD. 800 AD, a central hub for trade, commerce, diplomacy, and foreign affairs. It was overgrown by jungle and trees and now partially restored. Many different ethnic groups were represented here, may have been an area for global affairs and great minds to share ideas. And I'll show you that area in a second. One of the most impressive Maya cities, and this is coming from my own experience, moving to quite a few of them, is just like incredible. We went through the jungle and we literally only went for like a couple of hours. You could spend a whole entire day trekking through the jungle of those unexcavated pyramids and checking them out. Palenque was rediscovered and lost several times until 1841, when it was rediscovered once again. Pakal the Great, which was an emperor of the Maya civilization, around 650 to 683, was known for rebuilding Palenque. I think this is us walking into it. Yep, here we go.
People that don't know any different, and if you ask anything, then they'll like work with you.
No, gracias.
They're all saying the same thing. If you go by yourself, you don't know anything. But everything's written on them.
Is it?
Yeah, all information's written on everything.
Okay, guys, I'm home. This is on my birthday. I think this is our first incarnation together. Stolen mine.
Nah, we were little rocks.
Yeah, we were mine's Temple Rock. This is just how it looks like when you get into it. So I thought that would be cool to share.
Yeah. It feels so spacious. I'm kind of having some body memories with this one.
This is it. All right, so now let's go inside this pyramid here. See what we find. I'm gonna climb up this pyramid here. This is actually a temple.
There's no flash allowed.
It's very humid in here. Check it out. Burial chamber.
Or a place where some kind of electronic device was kept.
Yep. A lot of my beliefs around this has shifted since I went there.
Is there any indication that these were plastered over or painted or anything?
Oh, you mean by people that came later? That people excavated?
Or no, I mean at first, like originally.
I haven't come across that, but this time when I go there, I'll look out for that and ask around. All the people up there. Like the Egyptian pyramids, they were definitely glossed over.
Like backstage.
Well, they found people buried in those chambers.
Okay.
But then that could also be like
More recent.
later, you know, like what happened in Egypt.
Seems like
We have
this
to
is
ask,
blocked
right? We have
off.
to ask. We have to be willing to question.
Do something.
Yeah, look, they blocked this off.
They don't want you to see what's in there. It goes straight up.
Mhm. So at Palenque, there's this very interesting area called the Temple of Inscriptions. Its ancient name was La Cama, which means big water. Its existence was unknown until 1773 when it was discovered by the Spanish explorer Ramon de Ordoñez y Aguilar. The 5 entrances in the front of the building are surrounded by 5 pillars with images and hieroglyphs. Okay. These tablets emphasize the idea that events that happened in the past will be repeated on the same calendar date in the future. The second longest known Maya inscriptions, 617 glyph columns, a few columns record of various events in Pacal's life. So Pacal, the Great, he was adamant about documenting the past, present, and the future of Maya. So on these columns in Temple of Inscriptions are 617 glyphs doing exactly that. All of the tablets, excluding the final 2 columns, were completed during Pacal's lifetime and recorded approximately 180 years of the city's history.
As if we don't have enough to do. Now we got to go learn 670.
I know, right?
At least that's what inspires me to be like, well, if that's documenting the past, present, and future, then I kind of want to see that.
Yeah. So this is also where the Rocket Man, the Maya Rocket Man that ancient aliens uses, that's where it was found. But it's been taken from there. At the site right now is a fake version of the real one. The real one was taken to Mexico City and put in a museum. So here is another temple, and this is an artist representation of what it looked like back then. And you can see even they believed, I mean, either the artist decided to use this color, or maybe there is some evidence that the artist found to suggest that it was coated over with some other materials.
Right. And those steps are so steep.
Yeah, and look inside. This is how it looks inside. This is the intersection cut of it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Well, that looks sort of like the angles inside the Queen's Chamber and King's Chamber in the other.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, it very much does.
Like
So-
with that, with there being that many of them, why would you have that many? Is it either, so that makes me wonder if this sort of wireless electricity idea has any merit.
Yeah,
around-
energy creating devices.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think like almost all pyramids, even if they use for other things, I think like they're even positioned in ways and put on ley lines, and they tap into the natural frequency of the earth and utilize it somehow. And that's not even speculation. There's been studies on pyramids and what they do and how they amplify the natural energy of the earth. So they could have been like a little detour here is one theory is that we were devolving in consciousness, and a lot of pyramids were being created because they were actually able to create a grid work and basically your power generating devices to keep the consciousness level at a certain frequency. But when we started devolving to a certain level where we couldn't stop our devolution anymore, they overpowered and they stopped working. And which is why in Egypt, you actually see explosion marks. Like there was an explosion within some of these pyramids. Like the Red Pyramid in Egypt has this huge crack that has been, from scientific research, they can tell that it was actually created from an explosion.
And this one, look at that array, that golden array up there.
Yeah.
What the heck is that? That's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting because then you get into the golden helmets and the golden crowns and the golden crowns of India, and the fact that the reason why they used to wear gold like that is because it was so high vibrational, it would help connect you to the divine.
And so high conductivity of spiritual electrical
That
impulse,
too.
to a more rarefied degree.
Yeah. So Palenque here, in Palenque, there's a pyramid structure that was specifically for all the intellectual scientists, mathematicians, astronomers. They lived and worked in this building. There was no new elite construction until around 800. An agricultural population continued to live here. So when Palenque was a part of the migration, that was one of the abandoned cities that was discovered when the conquistadors came into town. And It seems after 800 AD, no new elite construction, same exact migration route timeline, but an agricultural population, maybe the descendants, maybe others that moved in afterwards, continue to live there for generations. The district was almost entirely evacuated when the Spanish arrived in 1520.
Are there any, were you saying earlier that there were paintings or drawings of what those looked like by the Spanish when they arrived?
No, I didn't, but there could be. So the Spanish are here. Juan Ponce de Leon sailed near Yucatan in 1513. So now let's talk. We're almost at the end here, everybody. So we've gone as many places as we can. And now we're talking about what happened towards the tail end of their great civilization and when it started to devolve and became more tribal and then eventually assimilated into Spanish culture. Juan Ponce de Leon sailed near the Yucatan in 1513 on his way to Florida, but he didn't stop. In 1517, while on an expedition to procure slaves, a conquistador, Francisco Hernandez de Cordova, arrived at the shore. Cortez sailed for Yucatan. So he arrived, he knew someone was there. Pretty much nothing's happening at this point. 2 years later, February 18th, 1519, Cortez sails for the Yucatan. He had 11 ships and 508 soldiers and about 100 sailors and 16 horses, introducing the horses to the peninsula. In March 1519, he landed in Tabasco, where he stayed for a time to gain intelligence from the locals there, including the Maya, about what was going on in the peninsula. What did the Maya tell them? There's these oppressors called the Aztecs, and they just won't leave us alone. And there we get the beginning of the Maya teaming up with the conquistadors to help take down.
They teamed up with them. Look at those little boots.
Yeah, there were revolts, and because they were broken up city states at that time. So even though there were Maya, some of them decided to not agree with having conquistadors, and some of them completely backed them. I would say that the ones that had more of a direct issue with the Aztecs because they were being taken as slaves, right, probably teamed up with the conquistadors more rapidly, and they were part of it. There's this whole video on YouTube. The amount of natives that the conquistadors had with them when they went and invaded the Aztec Empire. There were two civilizations that the Aztecs ruled over that weren't too far from the Aztecs. I would say nowadays maybe a 4 to 5 hour drive, right? The reason why those other civilizations gave up and went over to the Maya is because the conquistadors came there with so many other indigenous tribes that they had no chance but to say, okay, we give up. They gave up. They also assimilated with the conquistadors, and then they showed up on the Aztecs' doorstep, and the Aztecs opened their arms up wide, well, at least the king did, and allowed them in the city, and stayed for weeks, if not months, before any sort of war was actually created. They were actually housed in the most elite, beautiful places inside the Aztec Empire. And then there was a war that broke out in one of the tribes towards the Gulf Coast. So Montezuma left his city and went to help quell the battle that was going on all the way on the other side of Mexico. And when he did that, the conquistador, the head conquistador Cortez, went with him. However, okay, is this making sense, Sharia? As the way I'm explaining it? Okay.
You think there's psyops going on back then too?
Right. So, however, what happened was that the Maya, the conquistadors that were left in the town, in the Aztec town, were actually getting very angsty because they thought that they were literally in a hut in the middle of the whole entire town, surrounded by thousands of Aztecs. So they started a ruckus, caused all this craziness to happen. They went into the streets and started slaughtering. They had some psychosis of fear that they were going to be taken out by these Aztecs because they were afraid that they were going to catch on that they were trying to undermine the Aztecs. So because of that fear, they did a preemptive strike, went out and started massacring everybody in the town. When Cortez came back, over half the town was already massacred.
Well, it makes me wonder if they set up the whole thing. That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
Worse right now. That's how I'm like, okay, so did they set up this little diversion and then have the plan for them to sort of do it one?
Well, actually, if you watch the video on it, it does seem like that it was kind of set up weird because the battle that occurred was actually stemmed from the conquistadors, and then he had to go and help out with it, So like
Sounds
and
fishy.
the original agenda, the original intention was to take out Montezuma.
Yeah.
And Montezuma, people think of him as such a bad person, especially like when it comes to some like really like indigenous beliefs. But if you really look at it, it looks like he was just overly compassionate and really opening and vulnerable, and just he really thought that he could, even though these people had conquered his own towns and villages and cities, he still was like, hey, there's got to be a diplomatic way to save this so we can save lives. That was the reason why he let them in. However, because of that decision, everything got taken over.
Sounds like Genghis Khan. I mean, that was another thing where it's like,
yes,
where the victors rewrite history and say who's a good guy and who's a bad guy.
Exactly. So here is the last thing I'm going to show. Well, not the last slide, a few more slides, but the last place is the building I've been speaking about throughout this whole conference, well, this presentation today. And this is the top of the building there. This is us going up it. I believe it is. Yeah.
It was a huge culture.
Okay.
All right, so this is where all the elite of the society, in a not negative way, the astronomers, politicians, scientists, artists.
Visitors from all over the world.
Yeah,
Look at the T window.
Yeah.
Because the Mayans was a huge culture. The original culture 3,000 years ago definitely did trade with other cultures around the world. This is where they would meet. And then the other side we're going to go is where
this is like their parliament. However, it included
and,
astronomers, mathematicians,
basically
philosophers.
Kind of like a room where people from all over the world and all the scientists would gather and discuss.
Like a university almost.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
Sculptures are close up. I have to go back and look for those.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
Wow, what
last
a
time we're here,
trip.
unfortunately, we can't go into that side right now.
So
It's
this
closed
is
off
where they
for
would
some reason.
sit, Shreya, and this is the center where the lectures would occur, or basically it looks like, okay, so basically it looks like there were many different civilizations from around the world that came together to create an experiment called the Maya civilization. And maybe the Maya had been there before and other ones came, but a lot of them met in this area. There's symbolism here that connects to China, to Greece, to India. And it looks like that they could have come here in order to figure out what was the best out of all of their cultures in order to cultivate and create this experiment of the Maya, which our first presenter alluded to today, or our second one, Miguel, meaning more an awakened one working on his connection with creator, right? Or his or her connection to creator. So it seems like there was a lot of cultures here, including one of the tribes of Israel is one of the beliefs that actually came to Palenque, and they would have a discussion of, their spiritual practices and more. And this is one of the areas that they would meet and have these discussions.
Yeah, I mean,
see
it's
that slab
basically
right
a
there?
different attitude, right? Like the competition that we have now
Yes.
is included in that concept. It's like it's before we got this twisted idea of competition where civilizations actually helped each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Like.
Thing like that's what was normal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so last time we're here, unfortunately, we can't go into that side right now. It's closed off for some reason. But you see that slab right there, and the slab on the right-hand side. Those are actually part of the roof originally. This whole thing had a roof over it. And even though they're solid rock, and we have a clip that I'm gonna look for at home, see if I can plug it in here. When you hit those rocks, they make these harmonics, these beautiful harmonics. Whereas when they were over here and as the roof, when they were part of the roof, when it would rain, when there would be wind, and this is like a wind tunnel, like wind would literally come through here. just the way it's structured, that they would make harmonic sounds on there. And then we would have all the ancient cultures around this area right here getting together to discuss politics, science, astronomy, spirituality, all of that stuff. And at the same time as they're doing that, whenever the wind would come through and it would rain, it would create these frequencies that will basically bombard all these people in here. So the theory is that we both have is that those frequencies were harmonics that were designed to uplift, enlighten, activate chakras. There's a chakra symbol here. And many other cultures in the ancient past had similar structures that also had harmonics that was specifically designed to create that frequency within them. Whereas in India, for example, we actually have pillars that were made to give you the same sounds as the solfeggios, which in Indian scriptures are actually saregama and not sol, re, mi, da, which actually represent each of the chakra symbols.
Also in Egypt, they have these,
Yeah.
I think also pillars that we've yet to see, but I've been told that when the wind blows, it's the same type of thing. So pyramids and structures were known to have sound frequency from nature.
So they really,
that was really helpful to humanity.
so then they had the understanding of sound and harmonics, and they utilized it for themselves and for the spiritual purposes.
Yeah. And
So
some
just
people
imagine
think
it.
that this, the event, like the event coming, this sort of cyclical thing coming to us, some people talk about it as light. Other people talk about it as a massive celestial sound event.
Yeah, because it is a frequency. Everything's vibration, so that makes sense to me. So let's end with this slide here. Where did they go? Palenque and the surrounding areas were almost entirely evacuated by 900 AD in the classical period. Around that time, almost all the major cities in the heart of the Maya civilization and in northern Guatemala and neighboring portions of Mexico, Belize and Honduras, were abandoned. They migrated to the areas between Campeche, Uxmal to Tulum and Playa del Carmen. Seems like there were some catastrophic environmental changes at that time. And I'm just going to browse through these quickly about the theories. There's the ancient alien theory, right? That they vanished. And here is actually the image of the rocket man that a lot of people attribute to being an ancient alien, but it's actually Pakal ascending into heaven is what it actually is, or riding.
Ascending into heaven. I mean, yeah, it's like some of this angels, it's like the starships or the chariots in the sky, it's like.
Yep. But it looks like some crazy technology. Here it is again.
Exactly.
And then artifact, some people say this is a real artifact. Some people say it's a hoax. You do the research on it, you'll find 50% saying one, 50% saying the other. So I'm just offering it as information.
Amazing.
And then the Spanish did it. We heard that one. When the Spanish arrived, they found completely abandoned cities. So did they do that? Those were abandoned. It took the Spanish almost 2 centuries to fully conquer the Maya. Did they die in disease over a period of time, small period of time? Not really, even though disease probably was a part of something that happened there. It didn't seem like it was the predominant reason that their declining population. The Spanish did not wipe them out since the cities were already abandoned and a huge population still remains. And the 15 million people that vanished from the migration routes and the population went down by 15 million happened before the Spanish even got there. They did, however, gain the support of the Maya communities to help fight in the Aztecs, as I already explained. But then here is the real answer. The Maya are still there. The Maya today number about 6 million people, making them the largest single block of indigenous people north of Peru. Okay, so now they're just there, they're there in numbers. Largest Maya groups are found in Mexico, such as the Yucatecs, 300,000 of them. The Tzotzil, which Gisela spoke about the calendar from those people today, 120,000 exist there, and so on. For the first time in these remote villages that connected the cities, the new generation is not being taught Maya in school. So it's only the first, really the last few years is the first time throughout the history that they're no longer being taught Maya as the original dialect in these villages all the way throughout the Yucatan. Most of the employees you find in the entire area of the Maya, all the Maya employees there, because a lot of people obviously have migrated from all over Mexico and the world, but when you go into the heart of the Yucatan, mostly around Uxmal, Santa Elena, and all the small villages from Playa del Carmen to that area, and a little bit expanded beyond that, If you go there, you'll see almost everybody working at these places are Maya descendants, right? They have some sort of Maya ancestry, and almost all of them speak Maya. And I would say, yeah, like close to almost all of them. I actually haven't met a Mayan descendant that didn't speak it unless they were like a child. But not only that, that they actually speak it before Spanish too. So it's not like Spanish is the common language and then that Maya is the common language and then Spanish is the second language. The Spanish were not entirely responsible for the drop in population. All right, and that's it. And here's to close off next year if you want to join us. Obviously, it says 2021 because that was the original date, but it's going to be 2022. It's my birthday week because I like going there during my birthday. And these are where we're going to go. We're going to be in Merida. We're going to go to Uxmal. We're going to do sweat lodges in Santa Elena. We're going to go to Caba. We're going to go to Sayil, which is another place next to it. We're going to go to Oquintoc and then Playa del Carmen to have some beach days, some fun on the beach. Cenotes. And then also Tulum, the ancient site there, Coba. We're going to do some zip lining in the jungles and canoeing in the rivers. And then we're going to go back to Merida and then depart the next day. So if you guys are interested in learning more, you already sign up on portalextension.org. When I launch it, I'll let you know. Or you can just email me and you can sign up right now with deposit.
Beautiful.
And that is it.
Amazing. What a powerful day we have had together here. So grateful for all the people who have stuck with us in the live stream and all who will be listening later on, all of our amazing presenters and the spirit of the elders and all the beautiful beings, the ancestors, and the one within us all that knows the truth about all these questions we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is just what we're doing. Like, I love what we're doing together. Is that I feel really amazing within me, just the fact that we're paying homage to these separate civilizations and giving them a whole day to really dive into it and delve into it. Because this is just the beginning. And I felt starting with the Maya is perfect. And now we're just going to go for the next 12 months and just keep unraveling our human history and learning how we can connect the dots even more,
I really like the dialogue too. Like, definitely we should incorporate some of that in each of the presentations because it's really interesting to look at pictures and compare notes and just sort of have a little thought container for this.
Yeah. I loved how we did it too, because that just gives more feedback and context, of what we're creating here.
Mm-hmm. And again, we, for whatever reason, our memory banks are not fully loaded. Let's say, here in this time space reality that we find ourselves in right now. And I believe that in our natural state, we do have our memory banks fully loaded. And I know, believe and know that the Akashic record is there. So what actually did happen exists for us to discover. And then there's things like remote viewing, there's intuition, there's, scrying, there's all kinds of different ways to go back and sort of start to piece together what actually happened. And, why is that important? Well, we have to know where we've been in order to know where we're going, and just piecing together who we are. Sometimes those types of things can help. Now, kind of like, who was it? Dan, I think, was pointing to earlier. We don't want to get too wrapped up in the mind, and these things, we can geek out on it all day long, go down all kind of rabbit holes. But at the end of the day, it's a blessing to start to comprehend that there's so much more going on around our history than we've been taught, and that is plain in our culture at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And like the theme from the Portal Ascension Conference, Ancient History Panel, and then now is really, what does the past have to do with the now? And how does this bring us more present and more aware of who we are? And it's really there's many actually facets of that, many aspects, but one would be just the amazing diversity and the genius of our ancient past and what we've actually done and accomplished. It's really beautiful to be aware of. But a lot of these ancient civilizations, pre-history, let's say, have a lot of messages for us that we can utilize in this now moment, right? And how we can live more connected to each other, how we can live connected to the earth, because especially the indigenous tribes of North America, the whole of the Americas really had this connection to the earth, right? And it seems like as we've moved into this industrial age, we've kind of lost that connection, right? We've even created disconnections. We've created socks, shoes, carpets, ground, fifth story. We're so disconnected from the natural vibration of the planet. So I feel that is one of the lessons, is really how to reconnect.
In that picture, those people in that painting, I mean, yeah, they had those abs you were talking about, and they, they did have boots on, but I can imagine a bunch of them were running around barefoot too.
Yeah, no, right?
Not so many clothes on, but it was very beautiful.
Yeah, because if we think about it conventionally, and they were doing exactly what you said, they must have been ripped.
No doubt. No.
Yeah.
Must have been totally ripped. Yeah, we need to learn some things, and also like we've been taught that some people, some whole parts of this civilization think history of the planet started 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was like when the last flood happened. So it kind of makes sense. But well, yeah, that creation happened, around 6,000. But then before that, there was another one, and Lord knows how long back.
Right. And it's mistranslations too. For example, in Genesis, it says tohu vohu, right? And that's been translated to void and desolate. The earth was void and desolate. Tohu, void, vohu, desolate. But it actually was mistranslated. It means voided and desolated.
Oh.
It means something was there and it was voided and desolated and it started over. So that's where they track back their origins to because of the mistranslation. Jordan Maxwell goes into all that.
That's really interesting. It's like the camel. You can't get to the kingdom except like a camel through the eye of a needle. There's like it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get to heaven. That the actual literal Aramaic word was rope, not camel. Makes a lot more sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
But these things get passed on, and then just even more obfuscation. I mean, I guess it's part of the drama of being here and not knowing all of the signs of time, but it feels like there's a resurgence for us now, and it's actually really important for us to piece these things together.
We're 100% supposed to forget, because that gives us the contrast and the experience. What's the best way to have free will is to forget all this stuff so that you're just like figuring it out, because if you didn't have free will and you had the awareness of it all, things would be more divinely guided and you would know the synchronicity of life and the fate of life, right? But because we don't have that complete remembrance, we're figuring out things that deep down in ourselves and our DNA, we actually do know. So now is the age where we're having that remembrance. And I feel like we'll be more aware of the synchronicities and how everything flows in the world,
Absolutely. Well, we're getting some nice comments from people in the chat, and Watchers Talk, one of our MCs from the previous conferences in here. He's been saying lots of wonderful things. He says, this is just a minor realm. In our real state, we are everything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just one facet.
That's what the Maya were teaching too. They're like to return to the heart, to return to nature, to be in harmony with one another. Like this is the purpose that so many of us know and have in our hearts, and we can continue to cultivate that regardless of how much contrast there is in the world. Like that's actually our job, I feel, too. Yeah.
Yes.
Again, should we pull up that slide one more time just to go over who we had today?
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now.
Have a chance to check them out if they want.
Okay.
Every single one of the people I want to talk to more, they're all right.
Just need to find it here. Give me a second. There we go. So to everybody, because we are live on YouTube as well. So hello to all of you on YouTube. Please do click subscribe if you want to get more amazing, awesome content from us. And we are actually in the tail end of the all-day conference that we've been all within for the last, 8 hours now. And what you've just experienced for the last hour and a half or so was just the last presentation for it. So if you do want to check out the full conference, you go to portaltoascension.org and go to online events, and it's the first event right there.
Beautiful. Yes, we had Miguel Vergara from casakin.org, Eric Gonzalez from Spirit Jaguar, Patricia and Daniel Cardona from Cosmic Mystery Schools, Indian architect and scholar Abhi Shiva, Gisela Zermenio from Hutzilnacion word.
Hey, that was pretty good.
And then Neil and myself, and Alan didn't come on today, but
yeah,
We love Alan. And anyways, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Neil, for the idea and the inspiration. I'm glad we got to pull this together.
Me too. And everybody out there, this is just the beginning. Just to tell you again what this project is for the two of us, is we're starting an ancient civilization conference series. I think we don't have one scheduled for another 2 months, but then after that, we're going to pretty much be going every single month. We have Sumeria, we have ancient Africa, we have the Tartarians, we have the Indus civilization in the Indian subcontinent and beyond. So Egypt. So there's going to be a lot of amazing info, and we're going to go deep, like deeper than a history conference, because you might only have 1 or 2 people speaking about a specific civilization. We're going to really look at things from a 360-degree perspective to get as many perspectives as possible and pay homage to our ancient past so that we can make some real change to better our future and live in the moment. So it's paradoxical the way it is.
Well, balancing all things, right?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Cool. Any closing words before we end it today?
Well, let's just do a little tune out, if you will.
Yeah, let's do it.
So giving thanks, breathing into our hearts, a beautiful heart space, our connection with the source within us, anchoring that light there and allowing it to expand around us and help us integrate all that we've received today with great gratitude. We give thanks to the ancestors, the elders, the true lineage keepers, those of beings of the light, beings who hold harmony dear, beings who hold the awakening of humanity dear, all the listeners, all the presenters, source itself, our high selves, and the spirit of these places that we've visited today and all the things that we've learned. Thank you, Creator, for helping us to integrate this knowledge, to gain insight, wisdom, and direct information of whatever it is we need to know and integrate to move ourselves forward greatly on the path and to begin and to continue this unfolding with grace and harmony and love and healing and well-being. So be it. So it is.
So be it. So it is. Shreya, I love you.
Love you too, dear.
Great day. Thank you so much, everybody. And that is it from us.
Fabulous.
See you all later.